The views and opinions expressed during this show do not necessarily reflect the policy
or position of any affiliated workplace or employer.
The views and opinions of this show do not constitute recommendations for therapy.
Please contact a licensed SLP for individual consult
on your situation.
Please listen carefully.
What is communication?
An essential behavior of life. We have the both blessing and responsibility of trying to foster in others.
It's transmitting a thought from one person to another.
It's the strongest way for two people to convey information to each other.
The back and forth between two people.
Communication is a lifeline.
It's just connection with other people.
Connecting people in terms of ideas or thoughts or needs.
Draws us out of ourselves, draws us into that relationship, builds up our families. Without it, we'd be lost.
Whatever it is that we do to express intent and achieve an impact.
Communication is the ability to express your needs, wants, frustrations, and desires to anyone that you feel needs to have that information.
Welcome to Speech Science Season 7, episode number 165. It is so good to be back on air. I'm Matt Hott, a speech and language pathologist located in Ohio, working in a middle school and with adults for stroke and dementia. Proud and happy to be joined at the top of my screen, Marie Severson. She is a adult medical SLP out of Wisconsin.
Hey there, I'm back.
Hello, it's been so long since we did this, and we got to get the introductions back underway. That voice you hear laughing is our PTSD SLP herself, Rachel Archambault. Wow, I almost mispronounced working, out of Florida. Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be back.
Hello. And then I do know where Michelle is. She is in Texas, our pediatric SLP. Michelle.
Hello, Matt, and hello, Marie and Rachel.
Oh my goodness, guys. We have been off the air since episode number 164, which ended season 6. This is season 7. This is our 7th year on air. I am so excited by it. We all had wonderful, or at least eventful, summers. Around the horn, I think, Rachel, you should start us off because you probably traveled the farthest among the four of us.
And the most recent.
And most recent.
Recent traveler.
Yeah, I just got back a few days ago and currently fighting jet lag right now. I got home from Italy. Well, I actually flew into Dallas and then to Florida. But I was in Italy for 10 days and it was beautiful. The weather was amazing. And I'm so happy I went. And now I feel like I need a vacation from my vacation.
How many hours is Italy ahead or behind us on the East Coast?
It's 6 hours ahead. And the flight back was around 11 hours.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Besides that, was there anything else exciting, or does Italy pretty much cap off your wonderful summer?
I had 4 bachelorette parties, 2 in Scottsdale. So I did back-to-back weekends in Scottsdale. I had a Flasha I presented at in July, and that presentation went amazing. I can't say enough about it. That was incredible. And then ended the bachelorette tour in St. Pete. So I'm done forever, letting you all know.
That sounds wonderful. What did you present on at Flasha?
So I explained trauma-informed care across all speech settings because one of the reasons that people say they don't attend my sessions at Flasha is because they think it's a school-based issue. And I wanted to put in the title that this is for everyone. And I actually used TikTok videos for almost half of my presentation to show trauma-informed examples across all speech settings. And it was great.
Wonderful.
It's so valuable.
Thank you.
Michelle, Marie, who would like to try to follow up?
Go for it, Marie.
Rachel's wonderful summer. Rachel, did you go somewhere?
What?
No, wait, why did I say Rachel? Marie,
She
did you go somewhere?
She did go. So Rachel went to Italy. We know.
It took me too long to figure out that was just a
It was
misspeak.
just
Sorry,
it was
Matt.
just an aphasic moment. I'm so sorry, guys.
Okay, well, I'll start with my want, which is that I got COVID this summer.
Wah, wah.
And it wasn't as mild as I had hoped. So I was pretty bummed, but that's okay because I'm better now. And then I also went on a bachelorette party. This one was to California. It was very fun. And then I think the most impactful thing I did was that I went full time in my private practice about a month ago. Yeah.
Congratulations.
That's huge.
Awesome.
Thanks. Busy and
what was
busy and
I
fun.
have to ask, what was the final, like your final push to do that?
I think it just kind of felt like the right time. It just seemed like I was going to have enough of a caseload, and I was feeling I don't know how else to describe it besides it just felt right, if that makes sense. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was the right time. Yeah.
Michelle.
What about you, Michelle?
I didn't have any international travels, but I did get to go visit family in Ohio for a couple weeks in August. And so my kids got some really great cousin and aunt and uncle and grandparent time. And I got to see friends from high school and college and just life when I was in Ohio before I moved to Colorado. So that was my kind of big travel. It's funny when you move further away from where like you grew up, my vacations end up being back to my hometown area. But I really do look forward to those. So that was my travel excitement. On my end, I officially own a private practice now. So
Hey!
That's official. Thanks, friends. And yeah, that's kind of the big news work-wise here.
That's awesome.
Busy then.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
If this was a Friends episode, this would be the one titled, "And Then They Got a Private Practice."
That's
Well,
right.
Marie's is a full-time private practice. Mine is not.
Mine started with just one client after work.
There you go.
See, Michelle, how long did it take you to do that, Marie? To go from one client to full-time?
To full time. 2 years. But
see, Michelle, you got 2 years.
yeah. But it was sort of slow on purpose. So you can make it whatever you need it to be, I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
For me, my summer, I don't remember if we recorded an episode after or before I went to Disney World, but I went to Disney World and then a bunch of Boy Scout, Cub Scout trips with the kids. And then I got to be daddy single daycare for 9 days while my wife went to Paris, and I got to bond with the kids. So that was fun.
And yay for your wife going internationally to Paris.
Right? Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So I was like living vicariously at the same time through Rachel and my wife as they both posted photos because they were in the same part of Europe at the same time. So like my wife was like, "Here's a photo from Paris." And then Rachel's like, "Here's a photo in Italy." And I was like, "And here's my living room with my children." So
you'll go next time, right, Matt?
Yeah, I'll go next time. Also, I think I
along.
might have accidentally been looped back into becoming an ASHA SEAL somehow.
Oh, how did that fall into your lap?
The other person had to step down in Ohio, so I'm the person that can't say no.
That is
That
classic.
happens.
Yeah. Good for you, though. That's an important role.
I don't know.
You'll be great at it.
I don't know if I'm going to take it yet. You know, I got this podcast I do, and then I have like a bowling coach, 3 children, 5,000 jobs, and you people to take care of.
And us people, you do have to manage us. I agree with that.
Oh, man. I'm excited for today's show. So getting back on air, Marie, we will go over your interview in a moment that we're going to finally air to kick off season 7. Michelle, we're going to be pulling a name for the winner of the You Got This Sis book giveaway, our summer giveaway, I should say. Also, we're going to deep dive into the Discord that has been posting questions for us to kind of dive into during the summer.
I'm looking forward to it. Yay.
Got to get through the backlog.
Marie, before we jump into the Discord, and Michelle, before we jump into, there goes my voice. I'm a speech therapist. I can admit that. Into the winner, Marie, who are we running on air this week? What is your big old first interview on the airwaves of the SS Pod?
I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Elizabeth Lipton Daly, who's the co-founder and executive VP of E2 Scientific, which is the company that put out the Tongueometer, which is a tongue strengthening biofeedback device. And the co-founder, Ed Steger, and president was also a wonderful interviewee. It was a very interesting interview in general, just to learn about an interesting high-tech product for dysphagia rehab.
That's so cool.
I'm excited to hear about this because I know you've mentioned it before, and I've heard just murmurings about the device and don't know anything much about it at all.
Marie,
I was just using it the other day.
Are you really?
Yeah, it's great.
Well, I'm excited for you not to waste your shot as your first interview on speech science.
I see what you did there.
See, did you like that transition?
Yeah. Matt is segueing into allowing me to share that I saw Hamilton over the summer and I forgot to share that. It was for the first time. I do this thing where sometimes I won't participate in some type of cultural phenomenon for a really long time. And then I'll get sad when no one wants to talk about it because it's been several years. But anyways, I can't get it out of my head. It's been like 2 months and I can't stop singing the song. So if anyone knows how to fix that, send me a message.
Don't fix it. That music's worth listening to.
The most interesting thing I found about Hamilton was in an interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda, or whatever, Miranda, about a month and a half or 2 months ago. And he was talking about when he wrote the show, he never could understand why Aaron Burr was the way he was. And he really identified with Hamilton, which is why he wrote himself as Hamilton. But now that he is who he is, he understands Aaron Burr, and he would love to go back onto Broadway to play Burr because now he gets the not wanting to lose everything and you have stuff to give up. And it's super interesting. I think I love the theater mind behind that and trying to take yourself and projecting it on stage. So
absolutely.
This is a Hamilton podcast now.
Yep, it is now. SS Pod meets Hamilton.
Can we talk about it some more?
Someday I will see it live. That's a goal of mine.
Michelle, you get to pick the person who is in the room when it happens, when they get to. I tried, Rachel. Don't shake your head.
You made it sound like we were giving away Hamilton tickets.
We are not, but we are giving away Sis You Got This. What else is part of that big Sis You Got This summer giveaway?
Well, if you remember the interview with Barbara Fernandez after we actually interviewed her right before her book came out, which is called Sis You Got This, From Surviving to Thriving as a Minority SLP. And even if you only read a section of that book, I think it is absolutely worth your time to take a look at it. And then also, so she's going to be sending a copy of that book and then also access to her Speech and Language Academy online resources. So she's developed speech apps over the years and also has this whole platform of speech language resources that you can access. So it's a pretty cool giveaway.
All right, so here's how we're going to live pick the name on air. There are 3 of you, so each of you are going to pick a number that matches up with one of our people that signed up. So Michelle, since you orchestrated this whole thing, you get to go first. Pick a number between 0 and 24.
17.
All right, Rachel, you get 0 to 60.
22.
And Marie, you get 0 to 60 as well.
4.
So what I did was I didn't look at the date they signed up on. I looked up at the timestamp that they signed up on, and that would go to Miss Shannon Fisher. Congratulations, Shannon.
Woo!
Yay, Shannon! Congrats, Shannon.
Awesome. And your contact info is in there, right, Matt? So we can.
Yep, Shannon, we have your email. We will not read it out on air, but we will send an email to Barbara Fernandez and then CC you to it as well, so that you guys can all coordinate the awesomeness that is the Sis You Got This summer giveaway.
Awesome.
Right.
So let's jump into a couple of our fun parts of our show and some of our down parts of our show. The fun part is the SSPOD Shoutout. Who wants to describe the SSPOD Shoutout? I'll do it. It is an opportunity.
You throw it to three of us. None of us know who to talk to.
You guys all just shook your heads and was like, nope. The SSPOD Shoutout is an opportunity to shine a light, a spotlight on someone that is doing something awesome in or around the field of speech and language therapy, or is an SLP, or doing something to promote our field. This week, it goes to Dr. Julie Washington. She was appointed to the American Reading Company's Academic Advisory Board. She is also a cultural dialect expert. So congratulations to Dr. Julie Washington. She is also a fellow of the of ASHA and is also a professor in the School of Education at the University of California, Irvine. So congrats, Dr. Washington.
Congratulations.
All right.
On the flip side, it's the SSPOD Due Process. So this is where we are going to clean out the attic that is the Discord and the emails. And a couple of them are just kind of information that we got to get out there, and I want to hear your guys' reaction to it. This first one comes via email from Susan, and she is an SLP in Ohio, name changed on purpose on this one. Wants to know if she leaves a contract early for a school system, can the school districts hold her license until the end of the year? And I found out the answer is yes.
Wow.
In Ohio, at least.
What does that mean, holds their license?
So in Ohio, sorry, Michelle, go for it.
I think the simple meaning is that you can't go work in a school for that school year.
So in Ohio,
you could take a job somewhere else, but not in a school.
We hold our SLP license and a pupil services license or a pupil license. And if you leave the school outside of the time frame that is allowed, which is usually until like June 18th or July 1st, depending on the school district, it is in the Ohio law that they can hold the license for any amount of time the school district would like. Now they can go to the board to request being voted on to be allowed out early. But if they terminate the contract on their own, the school board can choose to hold it for up to the end of the school year.
Wow.
Is it like rough. That in Florida? Rachel, you gave me that look. So is that like, does it work that way in Florida?
Not at all. And if it were, I think that my district specifically would have less vacancies than they do, because we're dealing with significant turnover. It's a revolving door, and maybe it's one day that they work and they're like, you know what, it's not working for me, I'm done, they leave. I think by having that law, it would help reduce some of that turnover and prevent people from leaving. But at the same time, like, there are life circumstances that I'm sure the board would be like, oh yeah, you have to move due to this or whatever. Like, I don't like that rule at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it either, but I do think it is the school's equivalent of a non-compete. And I've seen those in hospitals. I've seen those from clinics before. You know, when I went to sign one, when I was going to go work at a privately owned clinic in West Texas, I specifically had them remove the part about, you know, I basically signed I wouldn't be taking patients from the clinic, but take out the part that I would not see patients otherwise because I was working on a second job, you know? Right. So, but I mean, I've heard of, and we're not medical doctors, I know that, but for doctors, they'll have like as the bird flies, as the crow flies radius that they can't work if they leave within so long of leaving a certain job, which is crazy, but it's real. So, I mean, read the fine print when you're taking a job. I know in Colorado in the schools, I was an at-will employee, which sounds like what Florida is from what you said, Rachel, that I could leave or they could terminate me. And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know that about Ohio, Matt.
Yeah, it says if a teacher terminates a contract in any manner other than the as provided for the above before July 10th, the employing school board may file a complaint with the State Board of Education. After an investigation, the license of the teacher who terminated their contract, and in Ohio, SLPs are under teacher licensure.
A lot of states are, yeah.
Yeah. The license of the teacher who terminated their contract may be suspended for not more than 1 year.
And so to clarify for anybody who isn't or hasn't worked in the schools, most of the time you have to have an educational license as well that you put in for. So you might have your state license, like in Colorado, I had to have the medical one and then a school one, right? If I worked in a medical setting of any kind, and then would be covered under my regular SLP state license for the state of Colorado. But then I had to, with the Board of Education, apply and get I'm putting it in quotes, a teacher's license, but it's a SLP credential to work in the schools. And so that's what they're holding. They're not holding your ASHA or your regular state licensure to be an SLP. It's just saying that you cannot work in another school for that period.
In that state.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like an overreach. No non-compete would ever be as broad as statewide.
But I could see it though. Like we talk about, like Rachel, you said your school district may have, or the school districts, may avoid having so many openings. It keeps an SLP from leaving Cincinnati to go to another school district in Cincinnati or Columbus for more money.
It would, but didn't you do that? Like, didn't you?
Why would we want to keep people in their
the
positions when they don't want to be there?
At the end of the school, I get it. It's just like,
because then it's like patient abandonment.
And I get. People
like to threaten that that's what that is, when it's really somebody exercising their right to leave a potentially toxic work environment. They like to say that's patient abandonment. That's
yes. And if have any of you looked into it? Because I read it, having to leave a job that was like major issues going on, right?
I know you've spoken about it before.
And I mean, I'll say that it's if you look at our code of ethics, just so you all know who are listening, because I did read it, that it does not give, and ASHA was very explicit about this when I spoke to people from there, it does not give an exact time frame. So if somebody tries to tell you it's patient abandonment if you don't stay for another month or 2 months or whatever, that's not, according to our code of ethics, true for us. We're not under like the doctor code of ethics. It says that we should make every effort to plan for the continuation of care for our patients. And that can look like, that is up to interpretation for you as a certified SLP with your C's to determine what that means. And it also makes clear that if you're in a dangerous or unsafe situation, that does not apply. So,
but I would also go with that if you're looking to leave a school district and you talk to your supervisor and then they threaten to hold your license, then it's probably a bad place to be working at in itself. Like I also wonder though, I'm sorry.
People aren't upfront about that though. Like I can't tell you how many places I've worked that go in an interview and say, we're a family here. We're a family here. And that is such a red flag for me of just, if someone says that, like they hold you to unrealistic expectations, it's an unhealthy work environment, and then they're the first ones to say, well, I'm holding your license so you can't leave. Like, so I really don't like that rule. But I guess it's one reason I'm happy to be in Florida.
But on the other side though, I see how, like, why that would have to be, because if I sign with school district A in September, but school district B then offers me $20,000 more September 4th, after I've already signed with that school district and they've terminated their times with the other SLP candidates, I don't know. It's tough. I get it.
It's hard but in education and medical, I feel like are held to this standard because in how many other fields do
not at all.
But on the flip side,
you leave a job and they take another job for $20,000. I mean, if you're getting $20,000 more dollars a year,
but in another school district, I mean, I don't know. Then I flip it on the other side, and if one of my kids' teachers left in November because they got a better job offer in another school, I'd be perturbed.
Really? I would be supportive.
I would be perturbed.
I'd be perturbed, but I'd also be like, if they made that decision for their family or for whatever it is, then I can't blame them for that.
No, but I would be mad because if my kid has spent enough time trying to get to know this teacher's learning style and succeeding or failing in their class, and then in November they leave, I don't know.
Yeah, I think what we're doing is we're asking individuals to be responsible for a systemic issue.
Exactly.
We're saying, you don't get paid enough money, so you have to
100%.
stay here because the children are hurting. And really, the school district should be at a competitive wage and providing a good work environment, or people wouldn't leave. And sometimes people will leave, but that's going to be the exception versus the rule.
I was just having this conversation with my with a close family friend about getting pay raises, and they were saying that people in the office were mad that everyone got the same pay raise. And I was like, yeah, because your company did that on purpose so that you would be mad at everyone getting the same pay raise and no one getting a cost of living raise to the 8% of inflation. And they were like, oh my God, you're right. And I was like, right?
Spread the word.
Fighting the power. All right. The second part, or not the second part, another clear out. This one is from the Discord. They go into specifics about the self P2 and using it as an expired test, but I kind of wanted to use that as a jumping off point. When do we get rid of old tests? And then when is it our responsibility to report someone using an old test? And I'm actually interested more from the private practice side, because I know in schools, like there is a tendency here in Ohio to make sure we're not using out of date tests, but like, how do you all see it?
Matt, is that because the norms are updated more often for tests with children? Because I'm not aware of that being a big issue in terms of anything other than content, like a test having maybe a questionable item or being outdated.
The reason I feel like, at least here in Ohio, tests are more recycled through when they get outdated is because when a parent wants to take a school district to due process and it is shown that they used a test that is outdated, it automatically gives more power to the family taking the school district to due process for whatever reason.
Yeah, like what component is outdated that would affect the test results?
I think if there's a more updated test, so like say you have an SLP using the Self 4 when the Self 5 came out a few years ago, like I think that there's something in the Self 5 manual that says like you have within a year of the Self 5 coming out that you need to discard of the previous one. I'm not sure where that is written though, if that's,
I think it's on the website.
Well, I feel like that benefits the publisher at the very
end.
100%
it does.
Yeah.
Well, what was it? The Goldman Fristow 3?
Just
what
discard
is
the $500 test that you bought 2 years ago.
You can't use this
because we made a new one.
But I
know get that sometimes the pictures look better, and like unless there's like an egregious problem or the norms have been changed, I just don't know.
They do update the norms. I mean, they re-norm those tests when they make the new ones. At least like the Self, I know, and the PLS.
Thank you. I wasn't sure.
So I think that is, the science behind it, I guess.
Yeah.
But
the science behind the sales team.
Yeah. Yeah. But I struggle with that a lot because of the expensive tests, but also access to them. Like, I mean, because I'm not always the person buying them when I'm working in a school or a clinic. So I'm using what's available to me. And how am I supposed to keep track of every single test and which one has a new version out?
Yeah. Whose responsibility is that?
I don't know.
Right.
In my district, it's our team.
The whole team.
What team? Which team?
The SLPs. Like, we just look at, we basically say, hey, whatever tests you have in your room, can you look to see if a new one has come out? And we just do that in the spring. So then that way, if there is a new one, we can tell our school district that we either have to stop using this across the district or order new versions of it. And
well, then I'm also frustrated by, I'm cutting you off. I'm sorry, Matt, but like what was the test that was talked about in the Discord?
It was the Self P2.
Okay. So that's the preschool one, right? And they're still selling the previous one. The companies are.
Right.
So how does that work? If they're still selling the previous version, why is it that we have to get the new version? And you're selling me the previous version just so you can tell me in a year I have to only use the newer version.
Yeah. Are pediatric tests just updated more? There's not an R-Bands 5. Like there aren't like 5 versions of any adult test that
There's
I can
like
think
2
of.
that I can say, there might be a 1 and then a 2 because they made it 50 years ago.
I bought the the cognitive linguistic quick test, and it was like made 15 years ago. And I was so worried that a new one's coming out, and they're like, nah.
Well, they have the CLQT Plus, and that one just has an aphasia version you can give. But
yeah. That's the one I bought, actually.
Sort of. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So then you're good. You're updated.
Now, being if you are private practice, right, Marie? I think there's a distinction. Am I right on this? That there would be a distinction between if you're billing insurance or doing strictly private pay, because you don't have to have the same standardized score to prove that need or deficit with someone if they're private pay, right?
That's fair to say. Yeah. And really it's just for Medicare for sure. If you're billing the cognitive evaluation code, you have to have a standardized assessment, but there are lots of different options that they offer for that. And then potentially some commercial insurance companies, they would want you to use a standardized assessment. But I think standardized might be used a little bit more loosely than I would think of it. Like it might not have to be a lengthy, like big R-bands or CLQT or favors. It could maybe be something else that still qualifies as that, but it's standardized or formal because it's been like it's been studied and sort of like normed, so that might count.
Okay.
But I wouldn't use it for that purpose, but
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would never call out another SLP for using an older test, but also that's because I don't have the time or energy to look up the test they use to see when it expires. I think the only thing that would catch my eye is if I use the same test and the one they use is more than the last version. Like I use the Self 5 all the time. If I got a report that said, according to the Self 2, I'd be like,
right,
yeah, this is garbage. We can't use this.
Right.
Yeah. At that, and I guess not so much calling them out, but if they were on my same team and I knew we had a budget for new tests and things, then I'd be like, hey, we got to tell them we should order this. I know there's a 3, like a gift of 3 out there, so we should get that.
Stop using the old one, Tammy. I understand you like the picture of the phone. Come on. No one?
No.
All right. The third part of our due process summer cleanup, we originally discussed this on the lost episode of Speech Science. Vanessa Garcia wrote in and said that back in May, we had mentioned disabilityscoop.com, and she wanted to share her gratitude concerning our work for the promotion of disabled people's rights. However, wanted to share that on government websites around the world, 96% exclude disabled men and women from showing up on websites.
I believe that. I believe that.
I mean, I do think there's a slow shift that you're seeing more and more of that form of diversity in publications, but it's slow.
Yeah. On the national, like global government websites, they looked at 500 government websites from around the globe, and they counted only photos not located on health or wellness related pages. And they found that only 4% of all the photos on non-health and wellness related pages were folks with a disability.
Wow.
So
compared to what percentage of people of the general population that have a disability?
96%. Oh, of people. I'm sorry. What do you mean?
So how many people of the general population? This is just a quiz. Do you know it? No, I'm just kidding. But how many people, what percentage of people from the general population identify as having a disability?
So I don't know. It's a good question. And it's interesting. I mean, if you think of a government website, I think of already 26%.
In the US, it says 1 in 4.
Okay. I don't remember where I was going with
I am so sorry. I cut you off.
It's okay.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. I was saying something about government websites. Like I can imagine going on there and they've got a stock photo from 1982. So I don't think that they're the most up to date, but I am very impressed by, I think Aerie is a brand like a clothing brand that has like colostomy bags that are on the models that are actual people with colostomy bags modeling a bathing suit. And I hope I got the brand right. But I've been very impressed by certain fashion brands that are using it in appropriate ways. They're committed to not like photoshopping.
Well, I know Aerie, you mentioned several years back, they were one of the first to openly come out, because that's American Eagle. It's a line of their American Eagle clothes, but to come out and say we've stopped all photoshopping like of our models. But that was years ago. So I didn't know they were also adding in more like you said, the colostomy bags and bags and such. I mean, that's neat. I have seen photos in some either magazines or ads now with the diabetic, what do you call it? The
amputee?
The pumps.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw the motion here and I'm like, amputee? Because that was one thing that I actually have seen, that in some of these as well, you have amputees that have like the bionic legs or anything like that. And I've been really impressed by that. It doesn't surprise me that government websites are not as up to date as the trend is now in fashion, I guess.
I mean, I was just doing a quick Google Google search on just cochlear implants and advertising, because with my daughter's cochlear, just kind of interested. And evidently the first national cochlear television ad ran this past January.
Wow.
I was like, I thought more people knew about it, but I guess not. And then a bunch of stuff of people being mad that ads photoshopped the cochlear implant out. So
nice.
Also, there's that.
Absolutely.
So,
wow. Thanks for sharing that, Matt.
Hey, if you have information that you want us to know about, head over to our Discord, head over to our Facebook, or email us speechsciencepodcast@gmail.com. Coming up on the other side of the break, we are still friends with Dr. Meredith Harold, so we are still getting some wonderful audio input from the Informed SLP. And then also, Marie, what is going on with the Tongueometer?
Well, we will be doing an interview about the Tongueometer with Elizabeth Lipton-Daly and Ed Steger. It's a good one. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Speech Science.
And now for our regular research review, brought to you by the Informed SLP. The Informed SLP releases a monthly newsletter that brings you plain language reviews of only the newest, most clinically applicable research, keeping you up to date on advances in the field and saving you tons of time. So let's get to it. Let's talk about Gender SLP. This is a review of 2 articles, including a scoping review of the role of gender within speech-language pathology practice and feminist research in a female-dominated profession. How can this lens help us to understand ourselves better in speech-language pathology? Both from the International Journal of Speech-Language Pathology. If you've ever been to an SLP conference or workshop, you might have noticed something weird about the bathrooms, specifically the queues for the bathrooms. More specifically, the queues for the women's bathrooms. Women's bathroom queues are famously longer than men's bathroom queues, but this is on a ridiculous scale, which is to say, if you haven't noticed that there's a gender imbalance in SLP, around 94% women with minor international variation, you haven't been paying attention. We were aware of some past research about gender in SLPs, like this paper about how gender bias affects faculty promotions in our field, and of course more informal discussions, like those that occurred after the publication of this other paper on vocal fry. But recently, the International Journal of Speech-Language Pathology published 2 very different articles that zoomed in on gender in SLP, and we thought, at last. First, Skeet et al. Use a feminist lens to consider, quote, the social, cultural, political, and economic reasons that a gender disparity in SLP might exist, how it is perpetuated, and who benefits from it, end quote. This article includes some fascinating examples of the ways gender affects not just SLPs, but our clients too. Did you know men who are hard of hearing are more likely to use invisible coping strategies? Or that women with TBI sacrifice adherence to medical advice, such as rest, to maintain their gendered roles, such as caregivers? Did you know that Professor Pam Enderby spent 11 years fighting for pay equity between SLP and male-dominated health professions in the UK? What a legend. This is a theoretical paper, but it provides a call to action for SLP researchers to, quote, expose, challenge, and act on inequalities, end quote. For clinicians, the message is more subtle. Consider how our clients may experience their disability differently based on their gender alongside other characteristics, see intersectionality, and think about, quote, the story that our profession tells about ourselves, end quote, how we want it to change, and what we can do to create that change. It's good to hold these ideas in mind as we delve into Lindsay and Cole's review of 20 articles on the role of gender in speech pathology. We do need to note that this paper took a very binary view of gender and did not include significant discussion or reporting on genderqueer SLPs. Also, the findings in this paper were really varied, so we pulled out a couple of points here, but if you're interested, there's a lot more content in the full text. Many of these ideas and findings may accord with things you already know about our profession. Some studies propose that the gender imbalance in SLP may be because our profession is associated with stereotypical feminine activities like communicating, caring, and nurturing, i.e. women's work, because men are perceived as potentially threatening to children, and because, maybe as a result, boys and men don't have a high awareness as SLP as a career choice. Unsurprisingly, in this context, male SLPs seem less likely to work with children than female SLPs, and are more likely to pursue, for example, a career in adult neurology. Some papers also reported on how male SLPs feel about their gender in a professional context. And while some men feel conspicuous, isolated, and limited by gender stereotypes, others find being a man in a female-dominated profession empowering. Some research suggested that male SLPs were more focused on salary and career advancement as critical to their job satisfaction than women SLPs. Sounds to me like we need to do some work challenging gender stereotypes that say that caring, nurturing, and communicating are women's work, unsuited to men, and to elevating the entire profession via better pay and career advancement opportunities. Lindsay and Cole also call for more recruitment and retention of men SLPs through mentoring and marketing to boys and men. For the clinical SLP, there's plenty of food for thought here, but it's hard to know exactly what to do with this information. What actions can we take? Well, here were some thoughts that occurred to me as I read these papers. First, many boys and young men learn to think of themselves as inherently unsuited to communicating, caring, and nurturing. I work with boys and young men. Am I giving them enough role models of other boys and men who are communicators, carers, and nurturers? For example, by including clinical resources and books that include diverse representations of gender. Do I consciously encourage and reward kindness and gentleness in boys, as well as courage and confidence? Do I give boys dolls and flowers to play with, as well as trucks and blocks? Secondly, male students and junior SLPs are steered away from pediatric positions out of inherent bias and fear. If I supervise students or CFs, what assumptions do I make about them based on gender? Do I give students and junior SLPs of all genders balanced opportunities with diverse caseloads? And thirdly, people who value pay and career structure are rejecting our field or being promoted out of clinical roles. Can I advocate for better pay and better career structure for myself and my colleagues where it's needed? How can I support my colleagues in their advocacy efforts? There are a million tiny ways that gender bias shows up every day in every aspect of our lives. Our work is no exception. There is more we can consider and do within our field to address gender-based disparities, and we look forward to more research in this space. Together, we can combat the conference bathroom queue. Thanks for listening to this review. If you're interested in more, come visit us at www.theinformedslp.com. Tell us how you put the research into practice, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at The Informed SLP.
Welcome to another edition of the Speech Science Podcast interview series, where I am joined by special guests Elizabeth Lipton-Daly and Ed Steger, who are here to share their knowledge on the biofeedback device they co-developed called the Tongueometer. The Tongueometer is an affordable, at-home device designed to measure and increase tongue strength and endurance for individuals with dysphagia. Elizabeth, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Marie. Thanks for inviting us to be on your podcast. I'm Elizabeth. I'm a speech language pathologist here in Madison, Wisconsin. I graduated from UW-Madison in 2014 and have been practicing in the acute care and inpatient rehab settings since that time. Currently, I'm the executive vice president of E2 Scientific and the co-founder here with Ed of the Tongueometer device, and we're excited to share a little bit more about that with you today. Outside of my role with E2 Scientific, I'm also the executive director of the National Foundation of Swallowing Disorders, which is a nonprofit organization for those impacted by dysphagia. And with that, I'll turn it over here to Ed to introduce himself.
Good. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Marie, thank you for having us on your podcast today. I am a head and neck cancer survivor, diagnosed in 2005, and after 2.5 years of very intense treatment, have had no evidence of disease for 14 years now. My background before cancer was in information technology and engineering, and we're really excited to be here today. In addition to being president of E2 Scientific Corp, I also wear the hat of being the president of the National Foundation of Swallowing Disorders, a role I was elected into a decade ago. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Marie.
Thank you both for those wonderful introductions. Something that I found so interesting about E2 Scientific and the Tongueometer is this collaboration between a speech language pathologist and a person who has dysphagia. Tell me a little bit about how you two came to work together and collaborate on this project.
It's a short but interesting story. In my role at the foundation, I was looking for a summer intern in 2014. And Elizabeth, a dysphagia course professor, submitted Elizabeth's resume. I liked it. And that's really how our relationship began. She has excelled in her role and is now the executive director of that foundation. So our history goes back 8 years now, and we have traveled together to DRS, to other conferences, and other than that, we live about 1,500 miles apart. So I only see her in person a few times a year.
For those of you that don't know, Ed is in Texas and Elizabeth is in Wisconsin. So they collaborate from afar. That's really wonderful. You know, Elizabeth, it's clear that you have a passion for swallowing and swallowing disorders and patient advocacy and clinician enrichment. Was that your motivation for developing a biofeedback device such as this? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, yeah, it was actually during one of our travels to a DRS conference when Ed and I first came up with the idea of creating the Tongueometer device. And we were at the conference where there were several talks about using biofeedback devices in treatment for swallowing disorders. And Ed asked if I used any types of devices like this. And this was my first year, my first full-time job clinically at this brand new inpatient rehab center. It was beautiful, but we didn't have the budget for a lot of tools and we didn't have very many supplies at that time. And so I said, it'd be really great if we could have a tool that was affordable, both for clinicians, but also for patients to purchase too, so that when you send them home to do their exercises, they have something that's more meaningful than, pressing your tongue against the roof of your mouth and how hard did you press this week? And, they say, well, I think I pressed pretty hard. I don't know. So that was the motivation for that. And since then, Ed said, well, why don't we create one? And, at the time I thought, oh, that's just a big idea. That's something that somebody says during a conversation like that. But Ed went back home and started putting together some prototypes. And since then we've had, I don't know how many different iterations of the Tongueometer device before we came to market. But we had the first one worked on a computer, and then we went from there creating different versions of the Tongueometer to get to where we are today.
And I think I would like to add to that. We had 4 major prototypes, but within those 4, we probably had in total 40 iterations. And during that time, we brought in both patients and providers to provide feedback along the way. And the feedback was invaluable to developing a tool that is helping so many people right now. So Elizabeth and I did not do this in a vacuum. We really relied on the professionals and patients to help guide the development of the Tongueometer.
Wow. It took people with a lot of persistence and dedication. And for those of us that are less entrepreneurial or tech-minded, to hear about all of the different levels that this had to go through is just fascinating. It must have taken a lot of really hard work. And how long did it take to get it from start to finish?
Well, the idea incubated in 2015. It didn't come to market until 2019. But that wasn't Elizabeth or my full-time attention. That was maybe a half a day to a day a week during that period of time. And there is so much that goes in to bringing a medical device to market.
Mm. And you not only developed a device, but also a companion app to go with that. So probably a lot of extra work there too.
Yeah, so Elizabeth and I are kind of the face of the company. There's a whole team of people, an engineer, a CPA, app developers, and an attorney, friends and family that were willing to take a little risk on us by making an investment. So it's a whole team of people.
Mm. It sure takes a village. Wow.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Ed, when you were receiving your dysphagia rehabilitation, was there access to devices like this, biofeedback devices, things that were helpful for carryover at home?
Well, there were devices, but they're not something that was part of my treatment plan, given the specific deficits I have in my swallowing.
So let's talk a little bit about the device itself and the benefit to patients. Now, the website talks a lot about how this device improves accessibility and affordability for patients and clinicians who would like to offer biofeedback. Tell me a little bit about how this specific type of biofeedback for tongue strengthening is beneficial for dysphagia rehab.
Sure, I can take that one here, Ed. So the Tongueometer device is designed to increase your tongue strength and tongue endurance. The way that it works is that there's an air-filled bulb that you place in your mouth. You push up against the roof of your mouth with your tongue, and then it pairs through Bluetooth to this app that shows you the visual biofeedback. And two new enhancements that we have on the app, it also can show you or send tactile feedback. So if you're using a smartphone, the phone will vibrate when you hit a successful repetition. You can also turn on auditory feedback so it can ping. So if you have users that might have visual impairments that are using a device like this, they can also get feedback in other ways as well. Sorry, you know, when they say you record a podcast, always make sure you're in a quiet space without your dogs around. My dog never joins me in the basement, but today he does. So excuse the click clack on the tile.
Welcome, dog.
Yes, hello, Mambo, to the podcast. But through the use of biofeedback, it really motivates patients. That's what we've heard, is that having something that's visual motivates them to do their home exercises. And our goal really was to have a device that they can use at home. We recognize that even at our reduced cost, it might not be affordable to everybody, but there's some clinics that are offering a rental system or loaning out the devices for home practice while they're doing their rehabilitation. So there's other ways to access the device besides patients purchasing them directly.
That's wonderful. I like that there's flexibility for different types of environments where somebody might be working with their swallowing rehab. That's fantastic. And I know that there is research on the challenges of adherence to swallowing exercises in the home. And so this just really provides a wonderful opportunity in a way that is much more accessible. I also have the device, and I have really appreciated the ease of use with setting it up and the really beautifully designed app. And I like the auditory feedback it gives. And it is quite a challenge, you know, even as a clinician, I always wonder, is this going to be hard enough? If I try it out, what's it like? And it is quite an exercise. My tongue was quite tired after just one session of practice. And it's really wireless. I mean, there's a wire between the battery pack and the device, but it's really portable. And that's so important, I think, for clinics with clinic space or clinicians that have to place gently in their bag as they're, visiting patients in their homes. And then I think for clinics to offer these sort of cutting edge technologies to patients to say, we really believe in you and we want to help and support you on the road to your dysphagia rehab. So it's very exciting. I think a lot of clinicians are excited about this.
Thank you.
Marie, can I add something else here?
Of course.
There's been a number of research studies comparing the Tongueometer to what I consider the gold standard before the Tongueometer, the IOP device. And those studies have shown that there is the pressure readings from both devices have no statistical difference in the main exercise and assessment pieces of one's use. One recent study, a professor had 21 students use our device and the IOP device. That professor did not share with them the cost of either device, and the majority of the students found the tongueometer to be a better device than our competitor.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. You know, very evidence-minded clinicians would be wondering what do the consumers and what do the clients think about the device? What does the research show? So that's very promising and very exciting. It's interesting because as a clinician, you hear a lot about devices that sort of seem inaccessible, or, you know, I heard a lot about the IOP when I was in school and I thought, wow, that seems like an interesting device, but I never saw it or got my hands on it. And similarly to what True Angle and Mobility are doing with surface electromyography, I think the tongueometer puts that in the hands of clinicians more easily to give them that opportunity to try it and just to make it more of a realized option.
I think one of the biggest questions we get is what are the differences between the two devices, right? Because everybody wants the best, understandably. And so knowing what the differences are is important. One, obviously, is the cost, where our device currently is $339, and we want to be transparent about that. In May, the cost will go up by $60. And the reason for that is because of the supply chain, which has caused increases in the cost of the internal components of our device. But also the difference between our device and other similar biofeedback lingual strengthening devices is our bulb. It's the same size, similar size to the IOP device, but ours has little divots on it to add extra sensory feedback. So great for somebody that has perhaps had a stroke, who is looking for additional sensory feedback in the oral cavity to use a device like this, but also to help prevent slippage so that the bulb can stay in the same place in the tongue more easily. So those are the two reasons why we made a change to the bulb that way. Our tongueometer device also has a lip guard where you thread the tubing of the bulb through that, and then it maintains that location quite easily. So you probably noticed, Marie, when you set up your device, that when you put the tubing through, it's pretty taut. You have to pull fairly hard to get it in that right position. But the reason for that is so that it stays in that position, so that you're placing the bulb in the mouth in the same place each time. We've had some feedback that some users don't like placing the lip guard flush up with their lips. That's fine. You don't have to use it that way. You certainly can keep the tubing extended longer so that you don't have to put your lips up against that. But that's one of the reasons that we added that.
Some of the other differences are the biofeedback. There's a meter that shows what your pressure is. And that meter is different than our competitors' biofeedback process. Data is captured on all 4 modules. That data is available to share with one's provider, and it produces a 1-page dashboard report over time. And I think the one of the largest differences is our device is more than 80% less expensive than our competitor's device. So that's not a 20% discount, but an 80% discount, making it much more available to the end consumer.
And that's so important. I mean, the cost is comparable to the cost of a standardized assessment instead of a large capital budget item. And I think that really makes it stand apart.
One of the questions we have is, how is the device so affordable? We understand how disruptive dysphagia is to one's life. And so not just the inability to eat, but the financial hardship that is associated with dysphagia. So we used rapid prototyping, and we drew on the power of Apple and Android devices to really be integrated with our device, so we didn't have to build that into the cost. We have an excellent team of people. Some of them have deferred compensation in exchange for a stake in the company. And I think that's it in that area.
Thank you for sharing. That's very impressive. And again, just increasing that accessibility is so important. And it's just a company that you can tell everyone's doing something that they know is important and very helpful. A lot of integrity there.
We're hopeful that insurance will cover a device like this, our device, and we've filed an application with Medicare earlier this year. So hopefully we'll hear back at some point soon. We've heard it's a timely process where perhaps insurance will cover a device like this. We're also working with a consumer who has requested reimbursement through his private health insurance. So we'll see what that brings about too. And certainly if there's a way to get reimbursement or to get device coverage for this, we'll let our community know how to go about that, because I think that will certainly increase accessibility as well.
That would be huge, especially Medicare. Similarly, like to how Medicare will cover the EMST 75 or the Aura Stretch, to have another option like that would be fantastic for our Medicare users.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Elizabeth, what do you hope that clinicians take away from our interview about the Tongueometer? What do you think is the most important thing that they know about the device?
Yeah, I think it's important to advocate for your patient, whether or not they need to use the Tongueometer as part of their rehabilitation, making sure that you're assessing your patient to understand what do they need out of their rehabilitation program, and then advocating that they have the right tools to do that. You know, certainly it won't always be the Tongueometer device that they need, but what do they need? Because they're relying on you to be that expert. So make sure that whatever that patient needs, you're fighting for them, helping them access that, making sure that they understand what their options are, and then listening to what their wishes are. You know, maybe they don't want an intensive rehabilitation program. Maybe they're looking for something, less invasive, less intensive, and understanding that. So, that whole evidence-based triangle, making sure that you're taking into account, the patient perspective as well. I think one other thing I like to say when I'm talking with people, I'm sure there's some students that listen to this podcast. When I was a student, I remember my professors saying, you'll never get into the medical field in your location. You're going to have to move away to find a job that you want for your fellowship. And then you'll have to move again to get your job. And then during my fellowship, I remember hearing, you'll never find a full-time medical position. Take the first one you get. So I just want to tell students that there's a lot of opportunities, and make opportunities for yourself. It's not a one track, you sit down in grad school that first day, you raise your hand if you want to be a school SLP, you raise your hand if you want to be a medical SLP. There's a lot of different options. So make the path that's right for you, and don't necessarily feel that you won't be able to do something because somebody told you that one day. So that's kind of my soapbox for students that are listening to this podcast.
Elizabeth, you're a great example of paving your own way in our field in entrepreneurship and advocacy. So I appreciate that. And Ed, as somebody who can speak directly to the patient-centered perspective, as somebody with dysphagia, what do you think that patients or people with dysphagia would want to know about this device?
I think it's important for patients to work with qualified speech language pathologists. It's really a way for them to get the most out of the device. But I would like to step back for a moment. Marie, I believe you said you had heard about the IOP while in school, but you had never really seen one or put your hands on it. Is that correct?
That's right, Ed.
So we have over 900 devices on the market in the US. And there's a paradigm shift. You now have your own tongueometer, and that's probably a little thrilling to you. The paradigm shift is, now that you have one, encouraging your patients who would benefit from it to purchase their own, because coming in to see you every week or 2 weeks or every month, doing an assessment is nice, but the real benefit is in doing the exercises for an 8-week program, or if you want to maintain or even further improve, to have that device on hand, readily available.
Absolutely. That's such a good point, that in order to see the benefit, there has to be that practice outside of therapy. That's arguably the more important time spent. Exercising is all those other days that you're not working with the clinician. So getting having access to trying it out and seeing the benefit and getting that biofeedback, I think can be exciting for patients to know that there is something they could do on their own, where they wouldn't need that therapist with them directly. And I love that that's an option. And especially with the option to start getting a contract with Medicare or patients submitting for reimbursement, getting that in the homes of patients is so important.
Just going to add that if anybody's interested in learning more about the tongueometer, they're welcome to reach out to us at info@E2Scientific or through our website, and we'd be more than willing to set up a time to do a free in-service. We offer a longer in-service that's about 45 minutes, where we go through how to use the device and also the research behind lingual strengthening. And then we also do short demos, because we know in the hospital and medical settings, there's not always a ton of time for clinicians to learn about new tools. So we can do a 15-minute quick demo on how to use the tongueometer device. Also, if you're working with patients and just want us to be there to help you set up the device the first time, if that's okay with your patient, we're happy to join them. We've also had patients call us from home. They're working with their clinician, but they don't want to bother them during the week, but they can't get their device to work for some reason, or they have a question about the app. We're happy to answer that. So you're always welcome to give them our contact information for that. We don't give any medical advice or treatment recommendations, but we're certainly happy to help troubleshoot the device or walk them through how to set things up. So Marie, thank you for having us on your podcast. We really enjoyed being here today. And I just want to give you a shout out too. Marie was on our local news recently. She was interviewed about what aphasia is in the news about Bruce Willis. So kudos to you for raising awareness in our community here in Madison.
Thank you. We all do our part with the advocacy piece, and Ed and Elizabeth, thank you so much for your advocacy and everything you're doing with the National Foundation of Swallowing Disorders and with the Tongueometer device. I've really appreciated hearing both your perspectives and learning a lot today. So thank you very much.
Welcome back. Ooh, my voice cracked there. Welcome back to Speech Science, episode number 165. I'm Matt Hott, joined by three of my favorite SLPs in the world, Rachel, Michelle, and Marie.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Michelle, I appreciated that you waved on a podcast. And
But
no
you
one
all
was...
can see me. And I also verbalized, hey. So you got both. You got the visual for you all.
This,
and the verbal.
Smile.
This episode will be, we are recording this around the 12th, and it'll be going up sometime between the 16th and the 18th, which gives us about 10 or 12 days before Halloween, or 14 days. Going back, and this is a question that I did not prepare any of you for.
The 18th is my birthday, just so you know.
Oh, happy birthday.
Oh.
When this drops, it's Michelle's birthday. Looking back on all the Halloweens that you have ever participated in as a child or an adult, what was your favorite costume you ever did? And to give you a moment to think, I will say that mine favorite was I did a zombie Union soldier. And I liked it because it was the first time I actually did my own makeup for my costume, and I had to go to Goodwill and find all the pieces, and I put it together. I was like 8th grade, and I thought I was the coolest because I glued a real Civil War bullet to my forehead because I was 13, and I thought that's what made the costume the best. But
I've got a couple.
That's great, man.
Pick one, Michelle.
I know I'm doing one childhood and one adult.
Okay.
In my childhood, just because it brings back fun memories, I'd have to ask my parents, but I'm pretty sure for 3 straight Halloweens, I insisted on wearing the same. It was a hand-me-down dinosaur costume. It was this pink and red dinosaur that had the big tail that like dragged behind me. And it was heavy because they didn't make that light material they do now some of those costumes. So I wore my dinosaur costume multiple times. But as an adult, probably one of my favorites was with friends of mine in Colorado. We did a group costume with rock, paper, scissors. Oh. And so I was paper, one was scissors, and I had like newspapers wrapped all around me. And it was quite entertaining, mainly because if we were at this party, somebody would see one of us and they'd be like, oh, scissors. Okay. And then they'd see somebody else and they're like, wait a second, is she? And it's rock across her hat. Right. And she's dressed in this big gray sweatshirt thing. And then they would see the paper and be like, wait a second, you're all together. Got it.
I like
That's so creative.
I love those.
Aww.
Marie, Rachel, favorite Halloween costume?
All right, my favorite childhood one. I was Queen Amidala when the first Star Wars movie reboot came out in like 98, I would say. I love that costume. It's one of my favorite pictures. And then as an adult, it's a really hard toss-up between Ginny Weasley. I go as almost every year because I look exactly like her, and I've reused that costume, I think, 10 times really now. Do. I do.
You're always going to think of that now.
That.
It's on my dating profiles. Like I've got a side-by-side screenshot. And the most recent one, when you guys met me when I had very red hair, especially you, Matt. Mm-hmm. So since I've had red hair, I was Kim Possible, and I did a side-by-side of that.
Yes.
Was the best reactions from people that were like, that is incredible. And it was so easy to do. So that was, it's a toss-up between those two.
Reach me.
Yep.
Oh, that's good. So true with the red hair.
If we're doing adult costumes, Marie, before I jump to you, a girl that I was seeing in college in theater, she dressed up as an old man and I dressed up as an old woman, and we went around and I gave out Werther's hard candy to people from my handbag.
That's very
underrated candy.
Very cute.
Right. I was just handing out cameras. Just handing them out.
What about you, Marie?
Now you got to give a child and adult.
Oh, child. Okay. Well, see, my child ones are boring. One year I was a hideous clown, but I didn't choose that one. But my favorite one from childhood was when I was Jasmine from Aladdin, one of my favorite Disney movies. But my adult one is a couple's costume. A few years ago, my husband and I went as Meatloaf and Ellen Foley from the Paradise by the Dashboard Light music video.
Oh my God, Marie, that's amazing.
Oh, it was great. And we had some karaoke and we definitely sang it. It was great.
That's great.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We want to know yours. Is anyone going as a trachea or an epiglottis or a tongueometer? I don't know. What are they going as? We want to know your speech therapy costumes.
Only if you're doing, I mean, I'm assuming those work best in a work party setting or, you know,
Could
the
you
week of
imagine
Halloween when you work
you're just
at
like a
clinic.
full-size larynx just handing out candy and people are like, we don't want to go to that house. That guy's a weirdo. And you're like, I'm a larynx.
You know what's a really good
we
speech
did-
therapy costume?
Oh, please go ahead.
Going as the grandfather from the Grandfather Passage.
Oh, the long frock coat.
That's great.
Yelling banana oil to everybody.
With his pipe.
Have you done this or seen someone do this?
I saw someone do it when I was an undergrad and I was very impressed.
I love it. That's
I think
great.
I know what I'm going to do this year during the school day because none of my kids will have any idea.
They'll just think you're dressed as a grandpa, which is fine.
Right. But there are like 3 SLPs in my building and they may get it. And that might be enough for me.
At least if you tell them this is speech related.
Just say banana oil.
This is my
Banana
job,
oil,
everybody.
yes. Yeah. But in college, I worked at the writing center, like where people would come in and ask for help with writing or whatever assignments or things they're working on. And it was called The Right Place. Get it?
I like it.
Clever.
Great fun.
But anyways, we had a Right Place Christmas party and we had to dress as something English or Right Place related. So we had all sorts of like word plays and things.
That's
and
great.
It was fun.
Thinking of super embarrassing photos, would someone like to describe what that looks like? That is my staff photo for this year.
Oh my gosh.
It was Hawaiian themed.
Is that hat Hawaiian?
No.
No, but it's island. That was the hat they had that fit my head, y'all.
You're
Island
making fun of me
adjacent.
for waving on a podcast and you're showing photos of yourself.
Hey, that photo will never see the light of day except on my ID badge outside my door, in the yearbook, and emailed to all the parents of
So
kids
it
I
is
see.
very public.
And
Oh, it's
shown
very
to
important.
us.
And shown to you.
Can you post pictures on Discord? Because I'll post my
Yes,
my
I'll
Halloween
post it.
pictures on there. We should get like a thread
fun.
of SLP related pictures. That would
I
be
love
cool.
it.
I'll find my rock, paper, scissors one.
That's
I did
awesome.
have a
That's
year,
so
not
funny.
that long ago. I say not that long ago, in the last decade of my life, it feels like things are merging, where my now husband and I, we were dating at the time, dressed as Mary Poppins and oh my gosh, yes, the chimney sweep. And we sent the picture to my family in Ohio, and my brother replies and his wife reply in the same costume. We did
Nice.
not communicate at
Oh
all.
my gosh.
Wow.
We had not talked about what people were wearing for Halloween. And so we just put things up side by side that said who wore it best. Like,
That's
oh
pretty
my
impressive
gosh.
considering Mary Poppins probably came out 50 years before.
I know. I'm like,
that,
this
you
seems
know?
very specific.
Of all the couples costumes. That's amazing.
Yep.
So Halloween is a celebration of all the things that are spooky and scary. On the end of the year, spooky and scary, it is a reminder that the new certification period for your ASHA Cs starts in January. And this leads us into a perfect segue where we get to discuss things that ASHA does right, ASHA does wrong, and we like to call it,
What up with
What's up,
Asha?
Asha?
What Up, ASHA? And Rachel, you gave us this one this week. What is up with ASHA?
So I saw on one of the speech Facebook groups, and I honestly thought it was a fever dream from jet lag, and I was like, did I actually see something about this? But professional development requirements have been changed effective January 1st, 2023. So you know how we've had to do an ethics one for the past like 2 years or so? Well,
Yep.
they just added 2 more mandatory hours under DEI: cultural competency, cultural humility, culturally responsive practice, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's that DEI. So I think that's a great move. I think we definitely need to hold others in our profession accountable for, they might not have ever had this training. And I know outside of SLP fields, I know more corporate fields have a ton of training in DEI, much more than 2 hours. So I think it's the absolute bare minimum that we could do, but I'm glad that it is a mandatory requirement.
And just as a heads up, it is not for the one that expires here in a 2.5 month time frame. It is for the next reporting period,
2023 to 2025. So we've got some time.
Okay, yeah, mine starts this coming 2023, so I have to renew this December. My 3-year cycle.
I've gotten ASHA. I've gotten an ACE award before because I've gotten so many stupid CEUs, but I'm excited for this because I feel like a lot of times when we're looking at our CEUs, they're just, what is it that I can find that fills 30 hours of time? Or in Ohio, we need 10 hours every year or 20 hours every 2 years, whatever that is. Like, I don't really pay attention sometimes to what I'm trying to do. I'm just looking for something that fills, see a need, fill the need. And I'm glad, on one hand, I'm glad that there are these requirements that 2 of the hours have to be ethics and 1 of the hours has to be supervisory. And 2 of these hours are now going to be in the DEI realm. I don't know. I'm a big fan of it, but also I wonder if it's going to become like the rest of the CEUs, where right now everyone's going to be like, yeah, this is great, I need to learn it. And then in 3 years for the next cycle, it's just going to be somebody giving a presentation at some state conference and they're going to say, yep, this counts as our DEI. And it's going to be like when I sit through my ethics course for the 3rd time in a row. And I'm like, yep, I don't really need to pay attention to this now.
Yeah.
Sorry to bring everyone down. That was the most sad I've ever heard. I'm so sorry.
I think it's because we all relate to that. We agree.
I think this is a positive step in the right direction. It is annoying to have to mandate a certain amount of our requirements, but you could always go above that. I do find that sometimes I go to these conferences, I go to Flasha every summer, and there are people that are so proficient. I'll give like pragmatics, and the only sessions they go to are about pragmatics. And it's like they work in the schools or something. They just really enjoy the topic. And I'm like, are you like, I understand the want because I would love to do that with trauma informed. But at the same time, the whole point of CEUs is to bring up the parts that you are not proficient in or that you need to learn more about. So that's the reason why DEI, ethics, supervision is all brought up or made mandatory because we need to do it. But I do understand what you're saying about the ethics ones that at Flasha, we do that and people are zoning out and, we've done this every single year. But I think
also
this is
look
a
at how many
step.
times on Facebook we see Susie Q, the SLP, make some inflammatory statement about the kids they work with or the adult patients or the families, and it is not culturally sensitive at all. So
I think it's very, very much needed. And I wish people thought about more critically. I understand it's a lot, like especially that we have to pay for many of our CEUs. It's hard to find ones that are free. But we really should be doing professional development in areas that we are not up to date on, instead of the ones that we are more knowledgeable in.
I think we need a mix though,
definitely.
It's the plight of the SLP generalist.
Yeah, because I want to deep dive into certain things, but I also know that I need to broaden my scope some too. Especially, I feel that way, especially having worked in many different settings, that sometimes I feel like I am just the generalist, that I haven't gotten to deep dive into, a real specialty. So maybe I'm just a little jealous of some of the people who get to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure people who already value these components of our field, like the DEI and the ethics, are probably already doing the work. You know, having it mandated is great because at least peripherally, even if it's something that other people don't value, it still has to be done. So at least there's some exposure, and then eventually that just becomes the norm. So it's just hopefully a catalyst for change. But I really do think that they should be offered for free. That's just my little soapbox. I think they should be more financially accessible than just saying, go off and figure it out yourself. They should be vetted too, but I digress.
Yeah.
You're asking for too much, Marie.
I know. I just take and take.
Every week we'll be doing this, the What Up with Asha. Marie, you just said something in chat. Did you want to talk about it?
Oh, yes. Well,
if not, we can hold it till the next episode, which will either be in a week, 3 weeks, or 6 months, depending on our availability due to illness, international travel, or
it's directly related to this episode. So I think
what we were just talking about.
I have a breaking news sounder if you want me to play it.
Oh, please.
Yes.
Oh, let me pull this up.
You got to have that on.
By the time he brings it up, it's not going to be breaking anymore.
All right, Marie, what is the breaking news?
This just in. Oh, I lost it already. Wait. Oh, this just in. Somebody on Reddit, a clinical fellow, just started their job in the schools, and it's a terrible fit for them. It doesn't work. They're not having a good time. They feel like it's a bad fit. So they're leaving, and they are posting on Reddit because they don't know what to do. Is it okay that they're leaving? Are they in the wrong? They're being guilted by their employer, and it's a sad situation. But
well, I'm curious what state they're in and what the requirements are for that license, because the CF, licensure is a temporary thing. But I would say leave if you need to leave, because you can always do your CFY in a different setting and go back into the schools.
And that's what everyone is saying.
And I was going to give opposite advice because I'm a contrarian, and this is kind of my thought. And I'm not saying this just to say this, but sometimes if it's just in now, I don't know what the exact issue is of why she wants to leave or they want to leave, but unless it is giant red flags of either abuse or emotional or physical or psychological
illegal
abuse,
things going on.
Things.
There are many reasons that somebody might need to leave a job.
Right. And if it's not one of those, and it's just like a sucky school district with low pay, just get through your CFY here. Just get through it.
But what about they being supported?
What about 90+ caseload?
Yeah, that I think that's
I left
so
the school district for that.
Unfortunately, that is not uncommon.
Yeah,
really?
I was going to say in Indiana there is no caseload cap. And
there's none in Florida.
Keep tabs on 90 people. I'm really struggling here to understand.
When I left my last school district, I started the year with 113. And I ended the year in 92. And those of you listening in Ohio go, that can't be, because we have a cap load of 80. Which
you get waivers for that.
Yeah, you get a waiver for that. And it's hard. You don't have any free time. I had no free bells.
Free bells, like periods?
Yeah, free periods for, planning, like I was supposed to in my contract. I had a 15-minute working lunch. It sucks,
so
and I got through it.
If your contract is being violated, then why can't they get out of their contract? That's what perpetuates this, these issues that SLPs face, because one SLP will do it and sit there, and then they're like, what's with these SLPs not wanting to take on a caseload of 90 like the last guy did it? So I'm more on the side of quit, but I understand that state-wise, city-wise, there might be different issues. And definitely when I comment now, I'll be a bit more careful to say, you can't just leave, because apparently some states will hold your license. But if I hear Florida, I'm like, get out.
your school license, to clarify.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're in a position to take a stand like that, to not perpetuate these problems, and you want to do that, I really support that. But also recognizing that not everyone's in that position, that SLP that stays and accepts it, maybe that's their only option. But hopefully enough of us are taking a stand. And
well, I know when I had my 100 something down to 90, the union said, hey, the school said they can't really do anything. And if I would have left, then I would have lost insurance. I would have been out of a school district for up to a year. I mean, it was easier to then use that time frame to just get bare minimum therapy done so that kids are meeting their minutes, and then be applying and going to interviews for better jobs, and then quitting at the end of the school year because I needed my license. And I mean, maybe that's where I adopted I need my license to have a roof over my head. I don't need this job. So
yeah. And that's what, I mean, it's an individual thing that you have to weigh your family situation, your financial situation, and then also when, as much as you can, your mental and physical well-being, at least creating an exit strategy. And for you, Matt, that was at the end of the year for various reasons.
Mainly because I think when I asked in December, they said they couldn't let me out.
Yeah. But then also I feel like if this person is that early in their CF, like get out now.
I mean, we're already one quarter of the way in.
Do you know what I mean? But like a CF doesn't have to even be a full calendar year. Like you may be just fine, even restarting almost your CF in a whole nother place.
I switched my CF.
There you go.
Partway through.
Look at that.
You can do it too.
It's tough, man.
It's tough, but there's just a lot of individual factors to take in.
Yeah, so true, Michelle.
So the moral of the story is don't take crappy caseloads because you may not be able to get out midway through unless you live in Florida.
Wow.
And you can say that. We can try to preempt it.
Well, I mean, you can also
they just get
hire
thrown
a lawyer,
at you.
But
yeah, you can also do a lot of things.
Well, yeah. And I mean, like, I don't know. This is where I have a whole lot of opinions because working in Ohio, we're a union education contract state. So depending on the union, like the one school I worked for, the first school I worked for, the union was so strong that as soon as the end of the contract day happened, we would be in a meeting and the union leader from the building would stand up, talk over who was ever talking and say, our contract is up. We're leaving now. And everyone would stand up. And it didn't matter if the conversation was like, hey, let's recognize someone for their 90 years of service, or here's what the new testing information would be. 3/4 of the room would get up and walk out.
Wow.
And then where I had the 90 kids, the union was so weak that they obviously didn't care or wanted to do anything. So,
well, I know one thing we didn't touch on were multiple school districts, including a big one in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, on the teachers, including speech pathologists who are on the state educational license, right?
Yep.
Weren't in school for a week.
Yes, but let's talk about what they were striking over. Do you know what they were striking over?
You give me more details. I'm sure you know more than me.
They wanted, listen to these unreasonable demands that these self-entitled SLPs and teachers in Ohio wanted. They wanted working heat in their buildings.
This is in Ohio, mind you.
Working air conditioners.
Yep.
They wanted electrical outlets that didn't leak water during rainstorms. I mean, the audacity of that. They wanted the asbestos not to be exposed. I am so appalled that they were also mad that some of their drinking fountains were unusable because it was unsafe water. Why would they want that?
Jeez.
Like literally Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah,
I was just thinking that, Michelle, like how can any of these more like higher level needs get met when that is still on the table?
But the board office put in something like 5 pods that cost $5,000 each that are like massage quiet pods for all the board members to go in and meditate.
What?
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh.
So, hey guys, we just made it through episode 165, season 7.
Wow.
We've been on air for 7 years. My oldest is 9. All he knows is this show.
Hey, that's all my children know. I joined you on here, Matt, when I was pregnant with my oldest.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he told me he needs another speech science shirt because I told him today when I put him to bed I was going to record the podcast. And he's like, well, what's that? And I'm like, remember your shirt? It's when mommy does the podcast, I hop on the computer and record with people. And he was like, yeah, but that doesn't fit me anymore. Baby sister wears that. And I was like,
Marie,
apparently
Rachel,
we
this
need
is
to get
your
you a new
year
one.
Year two.
Wow.
I
need
think
some-
our last
need some
episode
swag.
feels about 7 years ago. So.
I know.
It does. Listen, like we've joked about it on air, but like the one time in like July we had planned on doing it, I took melatonin and was like, I can't rehost, and then like people were going out of town, and then people were sick. Like, hey, I'm still listening to shows.
Your
I'm
message
still
is
listening to
about-
back. I'm listening to
about
back episodes
melatonin
of
was my
other
favorite,
podcasts.
We're back.
We're here.
We're here. We're excited. Hey, what are you guys looking forward to in the next 7 to 10 days, not therapy related?
I've got one.
Oh, okay. Go for it first, Michelle.
Usually we all hide from this one, Matt, so I'm going to jump in. My best friend from Colorado is coming to visit. She gets in tomorrow, and she will be here through my birthday, and we are taking a little trip to the Texas beaches.
Yay.
Wonderful.
With the kids, of course, but
That's awesome.
no, it'll be great. It'll be fun.
Very nice.
Love it. Marie, what are you looking forward to?
Well, wait, I gotta check the calendar.
I am looking forward to sitting at home in my apartment, doing nothing, not talking to anyone, recharging my social battery, and possibly a Halloween party.
Living the dream.
Yeah.
What's the costume?
I'm Ginny Weasley.
Okay. Just
Again?
checking.
A classic.
Every year. Go-to.
It's a toss-up. Might be Kim Possible. I do have like the red root spray that I used to have.
You could make it.
So I could just do my hair, but I haven't straightened it since January 1st. I've been doing curly hair for the past year, so I'm gonna try to make it until January 1st of
Love
not
it.
straightening my hair.
Yeah.
Marie?
Well, I had to check my calendar because October's moving so fast. I couldn't figure out what next week was.
True.
But next week is my husband's birthday. So
Aw.
I'm looking forward to that.
When's
And
his birthday?
So his is the 20th.
Nice.
2 days
Good
after
week to be
yours.
born.
Yeah. And this year for his birthday, he wants donations to charity made in his name.
Aww.
Like a true altruist, I know.
I love that.
Does he also want anything else?
No. If
No?
I had got him something, he would be offended. So I'm going to be very careful.
Oh, and
Aw,
Matt,
I love
happy
it.
birthday almost to your son who was born on
yeah.
my birthday.
I was going to say that's one of the things
Aw.
I'm looking forward to is Andy turns 6
Mhm.
for this, and it's not therapy related, so I'm not cheating because I am playing host. But on SpeechTherapyPD.com on October 23rd, I am playing host for the Cultural and Linguistic Diverse Students CEU event. So I'll be playing host there because I did that also over the summer. So our friends over at SpeechTherapyPD.com have some reason thought I could talk on a microphone for an hour at a time.
How do people listen to this, Matt, if they want to?
They have to go to SpeechTherapyPD.com and sign up.
There you go.
So I'm excited for that.
Would
Hey,
that meet the ASHA new requirement?
You know, that should actually be an answer I should have. So I will send an email to the team over there and find out. I actually don't know.
Let us know.
Huh. Well, I'm a bad salesman on that one. Our intro music was Please Listen Carefully by Jazar, licensed under an attribution and share alike license. The bump music was created by John Deku. Find his music at soundcloud.com/dirtdog music. That was called County Fair Rock. The Informed SLP used At the Count by Broke for Free, and our closing music is The Slow Burn by Kevin MacLeod, both licensed under a Creative Commons attribution license. In the immortal words of Janice Wright, the oak looks strong, but the willow will not break. And for fellow willows, Marie, Michelle, Rachel, I'm Matt. Until next week or the next time, thank you for letting us into your car for 7 years or into your earbuds for 7 years. Hope to do it for another 7. So long, everybody.
Bye.
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 Speech Science is edited and produced by MWH Production. Please follow Speech Science on Twitter at Speech Science PC and like our page on Facebook. And rate and subscribe to our podcast anywhere you get your podcasts.